I just got off the phone with Andy Sebolt. He was the chairman of the policy committee under Weiser, the previous chair, and under Kristina Karamo, until he was fired the day after Thanksgiving for asking too many questions. He's one of over a dozen highly capable and competent insiders within the state party that were either fired or quit because of the malfeasance of the Karamo administration, or they're fired because they asked too many questions and they didn't just do whatever Karamo and Mike Labadie and the team there wanted them to do. So as chairman of the policy committee, Andy was responsible for, in part, creating the rules for caucuses and conventions and just kind of setting policy and rules for the state party. And so he was party to any discussion that there was about changes to bylaws. So this is obviously an important person for me to talk to understand what it was that the Karamo administration was trying to accomplish and what they're trying to accomplish with the state caucus on March 2nd. And what he told me really frightened me, to be honest. The video that I did last night where I said that, on February 15th, after February 15th, we might lose our right to vote in the primary elections. And I said everything from school board on up to governor. And I was wrong about school board because that's not a partisan office. So I was wrong about school board. But every office that is a partisan office where there's either a R or a D next to the name, if they have their way, there will not be an election. You will not have the ability to decide who's going to represent the Republican Party on those ballots. And this is a really, really crazy, terrible thing. They've been planning this, I believe, all along. But Andy was party to discussions about this going back to May of last year, just 3 months after Karamo took office. And the way he described it, it sounded like it's something that they had been planning. What this means is that on the township level, if you live in a township rather than a city in Michigan, say the township that my mom lives in, they have 3 precinct delegates in that township. Those 3 precinct delegates would have the sole authority to decide who's going to represent the Republican Party for township clerk, township supervisor, the board of trustees. Nobody's vote will matter at all except for those 3 delegates. If you like to hold your local officials accountable, then this is a pretty important issue. This is exactly what they want. And the reason why they want this is because it will give them complete power and control. Now, they say that all the power and control will be the part of the delegates, but that's the same thing that the communists say, that the wealth and the power will be in the hands of the people. But, of course, they just get the dregs. And that's really only as long as the delegates do as they're told, and they'll remove, or they've already demonstrated, that they'll remove everybody that disagrees with them. And that's even on the agenda for March 2nd. I talked to some people this morning, a county commissioner, chairman of a board of commissioners. He had spoken with a state senator and a former state rep, and they said, nah, it couldn't happen. It's against state law. When it comes to primary elections, state law is very clear. If there's a conflict between state law, MCL, and party bylaws went out. And that's exactly the way we want it. Truly, we want it that way. Because we don't want state law telling us what to do in our party. Do you really want a Democrat-controlled House and Senate and Democrat governor being able to decide whether or how we can vote in our primary elections? Of course you don't. This is exactly the way it should be in the law, and that's exactly the way that the law reads. So they have the complete power and authority to do this as long as they get enough delegates at the caucus that they can control. And it's not just a matter of having enough delegates on February, through the county conventions on February 15th. They have a process that they've been refining. And I've been looking at this as I've been looking at the recent history of this, just as a historian and as a reporter. They have refined the ability to create chaos at a convention, whether it's a county convention, district, state, they create chaos. Now, Karamo is very fond of saying that 2,100 delegates elected her, and that's really not true. At the first two ballots, it was in the 600s. It was about 660 or so, 611 on one, I think 660 on another. That's how many people were actually going there to vote. It was only on the third ballot that she ended up getting 2,000 votes. Now, this convention started in the morning, and they were yelling and screaming and just the Karamo supporters through the direction of MIPF. They were hostile. They were hostile and rude and antagonistic towards everyone else. So much so that 20 to 30% of delegates gave up and left before the convention was over. And that's what they do. They create chaos so that people give up, so that the good people give up. And they cause confusion, and they've become very good at it. They've been practicing now for a couple years with this. And they know that even if they don't have the majority going into that state caucus, they can create the majority by getting good people to give up and by creating chaos. If you picture yourself in a convention and you're there with your county delegates and you think that all of your county delegates are voting one way, and it's a particularly hostile environment, and you know that you might get kicked out if you don't vote that way. It's just like in the Soviet Union, how people would clap. Solzhenitsyn described in the Gulag Archipelago that he was at an event where there was a communist on the stage and everybody had to give a standing ovation. And people were standing and screaming and cheering as loud as they could because they knew that if they didn't quite scream and cheer and loud and clap enthusiastically enough, that they'd go to prison. And this isn't quite going to prison, at least not quite yet, because we, the people, still have a little bit of power and control, but we're about to lose that. This is not a Republican agenda. If you think that Kristina Karamo is a good Christian conservative, she speaks MAGAese very well, just like I said last night. She speaks the language, but if you look at her actions and you look at their stated plans, this is their stated objectives. I showed that very clearly, but from text messages for her own former deputy chief of staff, that this is their intention. This is what they're going to do. And it's very clear that this is a communist agenda to destroy this state. That is what they're doing. And they're going all out. Today, Robert Owens, and I'm going to do a video about Robert Owens, so I'll save it. But Robert Owens did his first interview, and he's representing the Karamo administration. This is an extreme measure, and he's saying that, Mike Labadie, he only comes in once or twice a year, and he's not involved in the day-to-day decision making. Everything that they say is a lie. They said two things about Don Beatty, who was one of my whistleblowers, that were complete fabrications, nowhere even close. He said that she accused Kristina Karamo of stealing $1.9 million. She never did that. She never did that. She never said that whatsoever. Nobody's ever said that. But they're doing that to discredit. We see these tactics on the left. These are the tactics that they're engaged in. What we need to do is you need to get this message, share this video, share the last video, share my articles on Bigger Truth Media. It is crazy to me that nobody else is talking about this. There was a story in M Live about this today, and they quoted somebody as saying, "Oh, well, it's against state law. It'll never happen." You know that the media is not on our side. I mean, you know that. I think everything about this is just crazy. But that's what communism is. I would say that the best radio that I've ever listened to was on Steve Bannon on his War Room during the pandemic. In the early days of the pandemic, every Saturday, he would interview a Chinese dissident, someone who had there were a couple that were still in China, and so, that used a pseudonym to hide their identity. There were most of them were here, and I had to listen to it slow because they were very hard to understand. But their stories were just incredible. And one thing that several of them said that I thought that really struck me when they said it is that under that kind of a totalitarian regime, you have to rehearse what is true because there's so many lies being thrown around. We're in an information war. And I think most of us know that. I mean, we saw it in COVID, right? I mean, we were told the opposite of the truth about the virus, about the vaccine, about so many things, about masks. So you know that. Why would they just stop? Why would they not try to destroy the Republican Party? Why would they not infiltrate it? Why would they not lie to us about who's really destroying the party? Why would they not try to convince us that we need to focus our attention on the rhinos instead of on the communists that are blaming the rhinos? Why wouldn't they do that? Unfortunately, that's where we're at. This is just crazy. I mean, we truly are just, if they're successful, and the only way they're not going to be successful is if we get enough delegates to see the truth. That's really where we're at. This isn't a voter issue. If you're a voter, you need to find your delegate. You need to find as many delegates as you can, and you need to help them, grab them by the ears, and just help them to see the truth. It's like your relative across the dinner table that has TDS, except this is way more urgent. They might be a lost cause, but these people, these are our people. They love this country, and they've been so deceived. They really, truly believe that everything that Kristina Karamo says is true. She is a pathological liar. She's a communist. And either she is a communist herself or she's been deceived by Mike Labadie so completely. She's either an absolute puppet of his or she's a communist also. I don't see that there's any other option. Like I don't see any other rational, logical choice here. She's either a communist or she's so completely deceived and under his control. And it's not just Mike Labadie. It is Robert Owens. It's Jim Copas. Jim Copas is an evil man, and I'll show that. He's objectively evil. Robert Owens is objectively evil. He is a liar. Why is he here? He's from Ohio. Why is he here? He stole over $100,000 from his last employer. I have the affidavit. He owes his wife $110,000 in back child support, and according to the affidavit that she signed, he'd hired 12 prostitutes in the last 12 months. That's Robert Owens. That's the guy that's claiming that he's the communications director for MRP, which doesn't Michigan Republican policy, which whatever, it's the same. These are hard times. This is crazy times. And I just pray to God that we can stop this. I pray that he can stop this. He has me speaking to you and you listening to this right now because he wants to. And I think you can do something about it. If you can just talk to people about what's going on. Share this.